Hey everyone, it's Ron and Ellie back for this week's edition of Ask Ron. First up this week is Alan James in Florida.
Alan, how are you?
He's got two questions for you, Ron. It says, number one, would I be safe and within legal limits to purchase pre-foreclosure homes or those in the process of foreclosure?
That would be yes and no, Alan. You would be safe if the seller does not live in the home anymore. If they do, and it has been filed on, you are not safe, and in fact, it would be illegal for you to purchase the property in any other way than all cash if you live in Florida. Let me repeat that. The foreclosure must have been filed, and the owner must live in the home. If that's the case, there's the only way you can buy them are all cash. If, however, they're behind on payments, and the foreclosure has not been filed, it's fair game. If foreclosure is filed, and they are moved out of the house, it's fair game. But if I were you, I would document that they're gone.
Okay, his second question is a follow-up. It says, could I safely option those foreclosure properties that are okay?
The answer is yes, if you listen to the last thing I just said.
Okay, awesome.
You cannot option them if they're living in it and the foreclosure's been filed on.
Okay, second up this week is Katrina Manley from Florida.
Hi, Katrina.
She says, Ron, how can I find an investor-friendly realtor, and what should I ask them to make sure they understand our business model?
Well, Katrina, I'm not sure what you want this realtor to do. That would have been good if I knew that. Because if you're looking for a realtor for the pretty house business, you don't need a realtor at all. If you're looking for one for the ugly house business, meaning you're going to make all cash offers on houses, they're easy to find. You're looking for an REO agent, which stands for real estate owned, which means an agent who specializes in bank-owned properties to submit those offers for you. Now, most any agent can submit the offers, but if you're going to do this very much, more than a few times, you want to get as good a qualified agent as you can, and I would suggest you choose the ones who do this for a living and not much of anything else. Just ask around other investors, plus you'll also find their names on the signs in front of the vacant houses that look like they're bank-owned properties. They'd be vacant, and they probably have some kind of a sign on the house, for example. If that sign's in front of that house, there's a good chance that agent is an REO agent. So you can either find a house first and back into the agent, or you can just ask around and find the agent. You won't have any trouble finding agents who deal with REOs. They're all over the place today.
Okay, next up is Ernest Porrell from Florida.
Hey Ernest, we got a lot of Floridians here today.
I know. He's got a question about the multifamily webinar you and Lance did last week.
All right.
He says, if a seller owes $100,000 on a property with a present value of $200,000, would a subject to deal work, or would the lender be more likely to accelerate the mortgage?
The lender's not going to accelerate the mortgage, and the subject to deal will absolutely work, as long as the seller's willing to sell it to you for that way, of course. Doesn't make any difference, residential or commercial, subject to will still work.
Okay, next up is Albert Anzalone from New York.
Hey Albert.
He says, I put a
Sorry about your crappy weather up there, man.
Beautiful 80 degrees here today, Albert.
Yep.
He says, I put a buyer in a land trust about a year ago, but he now wants the property put in his name.
Right.
Can the trustee quit claim the deed to the owner?
That is the only way the owner can get it, is if the trustee deeds it to the owner. The trustee must sign as trustee on the deed, and the deed must be witnessed and notarized, and then somebody needs to record it to get it out of the trustee's name.
Okay, next up is Judy Rosenville from Wisconsin.
Hey Judy.
She says, do we need to send a written letter for those applicants that don't pass our criteria, and if so, does that letter need to say anything in particular?
No, you do not need to send a letter to anyone, Judy. If you turn them down, you turn them down. You're not required to give them any kind of a reason why. In fact, you probably would get yourself in more harm giving them a reason why than just totally ignore them and say, no, you don't meet our standards, period. The least reasons you give somebody why you can't do business with them, the better off you are. That way they won't hold it against you.
Okay, last up this week, a question from Ted Peterson in Connecticut.
Hey, Ted.
He's got a deal for you. He says the seller is asking $85,000 and it's appraised at $160,000, and he has comps to support that number. They are current on payments and owe $82,000, and it needs $35,000 in repairs.
Okay.
His question is, since the seller is only asking $3,000 over what he owes, Should I see if he will sell for what he owes, and if payments are low, make it a sandwich lease deal, or would it be better as a work for equity deal?
Well, a work for equity is a sandwich lease deal, or at least you own it and have lease optioned it out. It is definitely a work for equity deal, that much I know. I would definitely not renovate that house. If you buy it and take over the debt, I would certainly try to buy it for what's owed on it first and tell them I'll pay all the closing costs, which is going to cost me as much as you're asking me to give you, incidentally, Mr. Seller, which might be true. And then you own it. You take title to it subject to, most likely, and then you own it. Then you can put it out on the market and look for a lease option tenant buyer, as is, where is, at a discounted price. And I doubt very seriously whether it really takes $35,000 worth of work. Most people overestimate that, but even if it does, put it on the market and let an owner occupant do it. Now you're going to have to lower, if it's worth $160 after the work is done, which is what I took from what you said, but not sure, then it needs $35 in work that you would do. That probably looks like maybe $7,000 or $8,000 worth of money that tenant buyer's got to come up with to buy materials. So you might be able to get that house out there, I don't know, maybe $119,900, and probably find somebody capable of getting the job done and getting the loan paid off sometime in the not too distant future. So you'd lease option at $19,900, get $5,000, $10,000 down, get whatever you can, collect a monthly payment bigger than the one you're paying out until somebody does something or moves. That's the name of the game.
Okay, Ron, that's all the questions we have for you this week.
Alrighty, guys. Here we are in March already. Soon I'll be getting you videos of my garden growing, I hope, because I've actually already planted half of a garden, and now I got to go do my big garden, because down here, mid-March, it's getting kind of late to plant gardens. I'm sorry, you snowbirds have to wait till, what, mid-August before you can plant your gardens? I'm not sure, but by the time you guys get your gardens in the ground, I'll be eating my vegetables. See you next week.